the most fascinating things that I came across in these clinical trials was the other people on it. And there was me, a graduate student, upstanding young fellow like myself. There were a couple of college students, upstanding fellows like yourselves. And then there were a lot of prisoners who just got out of prison. And if you're, I don't know if anyone here has been in prison, but when you get out of prison, I haven't actually, when you get out of prison, it's really tough to get a job. And so a lot of prisoners will sign up for clinical trials for money. And the other group of people, which really were the ones that I honed in on, like my journalist teaser sharp instincts, were the people who did this professionally. There was a group of professional guinea pigs who would start the year in Miami and do a clinical trial in Miami, and they would drive up to Philly and do a clinical trial in Philly, in D.C., Madison, where I was, and then all the way out to, they ended in Fairbanks, Alaska. Okay? This is their job. These are professional pros at the thing, and they had all these like gimmicks, like you have to treat your veins right because that's the conduit to money and all that stuff. And they would make about they would make $60,000 a year on these clinical trials. So it was a pretty decent, income-wise, it was pretty decent. But the question is, and it's a question that's still in my mind, is being on a clinical trial a job? Is lending your body to a pharmaceutical company simply to metabolize a drug? I mean, I wasn't working, I was metabolizing. Is that work? And why were they paying me money anyway? When I got in there, they had me sign a paper that said, what the paper said? It said, you are an altruistic donor. You're donating your time to us, but we're going to compensate you with $2,500. So they were clearly trying to straddle this line, like, no, we're ethical, it's a gift, we swear it's a gift. And then you had to sign a paper that said, yes, I swear it's a gift too, where's my money? And so I started asking myself questions about this. And I wrote that article, I wrote a couple other articles about these clinical trials and these contract research organizations like Covance. And one of the things I found is that the drug trial industry is actually sort of on the downward slope in the United States. To take a drug to market in America is very expensive, and if you're not guaranteed profits at the end, you're not sure you want to even be in that business. And it costs $1 billion to take a drug to market from from nothing to end of research. That's a lot of money. But if you take your clinical trials and you move them, say, across the border to Mexico, or maybe Egypt, or maybe India, or China, it gets much cheaper. You can save 1/3 to 2/3 of the total cost. But of course, when you go across the borders, we all know that raises some problems, right? You're no longer dealing with the FDA, you're dealing with whatever organization is monitoring the clinical trials in other countries, and oftentimes it's not that good. I began investigating in India because my research interest in my Bollywood thesis that didn't go anywhere was India, and I started looking at it, and there were all these clinical trials where you start seeing, like, Johns Hopkins does a study and they dose 80 pregnant women with an anti-cancer drug without telling them. You start hearing about insulin, experimental insulin given to Indians in Bangalore, and like 3 or 4 people dying unexpectedly. Very, very recently, there's a stem cell trial. This is just about a year ago. A stem cell trial in South Korea where they gave a whole bunch of experimental stem cells to people for, I think it was a spinal problem. And people died the same day that they got the injections. So this was a big problem. We're going across the world, we're rapidly expanding clinical trials all over the planet, and what are the costs here? We're all benefiting from this. Every single person here has probably taken penicillin or something like penicillin before. That had to be tested on people. We're all benefiting from this, but at the same time, we're seeing that there's human social side effects that are going on.